I recently reviewed the RTX 5080 version of the Zephyrus G14, and it was quite fast, but also very expensive. Well, today I got my RTX 5070 Ti model in this beautiful white/silver color. So let's compare these two and see how big the difference is between them and if either one of these is actually worth it. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. Since I've never had a white Zephyrus before, this is the perfect opportunity to compare it with the gray version. In normal lighting, the dark one is very obviously gray, but the light one is more silver than white. But it is a very light silver, so I get why people call it a white color. Now the keyboard color on the gray one is, well, just gray, but on the silver one, the keys are actually white. And because of this, the RGB backlight looks a bit less bright and less uniform, and the letters are also a little harder to read. But the gray color also scratches more easily, since it has paint over its aluminum, while the white one does not and is just pure bare metal. And personally, I think it just looks really cool. I actually prefer it over the gray color. Alright, enough about color, I don't want to get too controversial here. Our white Zephyrus G14 has an RTX 5070 Ti with 12GB of VRAM, and our gray G14 has an RTX 5080 with 16GB of VRAM. But both of these GPUs have a TGP of 120 watts. Now, other than the different GPUs between them, they are pretty much exactly the same, so I won't cover every single aspect of a laptop like I do in normal videos. But maybe the 5070 Ti model does run cooler since it has a weaker GPU, so I will compare their temperatures and fan noise. But let's start with their actual performance. Cinebench is a CPU benchmark, so it shouldn't be surprising that there's basically no difference between these two since they have the exact same processors. But in a mixed benchmark like 3D Mark TimeSpy, we can see a noticeable difference in their GPU performance. The RTX 5080 in the G14 is roughly 10 to 15% faster than the 5070 Ti. And if we compare these two with last year's G14 with the RTX 4070, we can see that the 5070 Ti model lands right in between them. Now let's see what that difference looks like in some actual games.
Okay. I love you, man. Oh, okay.
Kinda game.
You motherfucker, man. You motherfucker, man. Fuerte, cabrón. Requesting air support.
Ik weet dat ze de hond die verdrinkt.
So as you saw in the gaming test, they actually performed quite similarly. In graphically intensive games like Battlefield, Cyberpunk, Helldivers and Red Dead, the RTX 5080 is roughly 10% faster, which is not a whole lot. But in more CPU intensive games like Rust, they perform almost exactly the same. And in CS2, the 5070 Ti actually beat the faster RTX 5080 by a little. That doesn't make sense at all, right? Now that is within the margin of error, but I think something else is actually going on here. The RTX 5080 in the G14 is heavily limited by its wattage. In bigger laptops, where it can use more power and has better cooling, it performs almost 50% better than in the Zephyrus G14. So in this tiny chassis, that 5080 is limiting itself quite hard. So I think that 5080 is actually taking more thermal and power headroom from its CPU to try to boost a little higher. So maybe the CPU in the 5070 Ti model actually performs better than the one in the RTX 5080 model. Now, I could just be spouting bullshit here, but it sounds like a logical explanation to me. And this theory actually rings more true once we look at its temperatures and fan noise. On the RTX 5080 model while gaming, the CPU reached a maximum of 90 degrees Celsius and the GPU a maximum of 85 degrees. But on the RTX 5070 Ti model, the CPU reached a maximum of around 85 to 90 degrees, and the GPU stayed very comfortably around 80 to 81 degrees. So both the CPU and GPU of the 5070 Ti model ran cooler than on the 5080 model, which is great for stability. But does this less heat also mean less fan noise? Well, no. The fans on both of these models ran between 5400 and 5700 RPM, so the fan noise for both is roughly the same. But the RTX 5080 model does have a little bit more coil whine. For those that don't know, coil whine is like a little buzzing noise that can occur on more powerful GPUs when a lot of power is being used on them. But this can vary per unit on the same model as well, so not everyone might have it. The fan noise overpowers this sound anyways, so you won't hear it 99% of the time. And now we get to pricing, where there's a pretty significant difference between these two. The RTX 5070 Ti model starts at $3,000 in Europe and at around $2,500 in the US. But the RTX 5080 model is $900 more expensive at $3,900 in Europe and, well, I couldn't find any pricing information in the US since they're all out of stock there. But $900 more is a lot of money, folks, so I can get if you're having doubts here. Which brings us to our conclusion. Which one of these two has the better value? Well, personally, I think the 5070 Ti model is a lot more worth it than the RTX 5080 model. It's $900 cheaper, and the only downside that it has is that it has like 10% less performance. Hell, in some games it even slightly outperformed the 5080 model. But it has better thermals, it's a bit more stable, and it is way cheaper. So for 99% of people, I think it is way more worth it. You should only really get that 5080 model if you absolutely need that extra bit of VRAM, or if you want the best of the best GPU in a 14-inch laptop. But compared to the 2024 Zephyrus G14, I actually think neither of these are quite worth it right now. The price increase from the 2024 to the 2025 models is huge, while the performance uplift is quite minimal. So if you're looking for a laptop, I would either wait until one of these is on sale, or you should just buy the 2024 version. Now me personally, I quite like the extra VRAM of the 5070 Ti model, and I really like this white color, so I'll be using it as my personal machine from now on. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwive, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, David Gill, Felix Nathan, Flimsy, Lawrence De Fabrizio, and Aki. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, you'll get a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also support me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool gifts like these in the comment section. So please join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.